Hello and welcome back to hafnar.blabla. This is our second episode. We made it to number 2. Woo, woo, woo. My name is Josie Anne. I am a writer and artist and arts worker living in Reykjavik and a member of the wonderful Hafnar.haus community / cult. And we're really lucky today because we are joined last minute by an absolute star and an original member of the Hafnar.haus community, Jelena Ćirić. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
To be completely clear, we were meant to have a goddess
of nutrition.
Kaida. Yeah. Unfortunately, Antje is also a super mum and she's having to be home with a sick kid today. So, hi, Antje.
We miss
you. And
look forward to your interview.
Yeah, which will come soon. But Jelena has stepped up to the plate. Jelena is a writer, a translator, a journalist, and a musician, a songwriter, and a storyteller. You comfortable with all of those things? We're really excited to hear what Jelena's been working on and what's coming up for her in the next year. I'm also going to mention off the top that there are loads of things happening connected with Hafnar.haus this weekend. Please stick to the end of the podcast. Only 40 minutes, guys. 40 minutes of your life. Not that long.
It's 40 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
And I'm going to give you a list of all of the things that you can go to and take part in and check out this weekend that are connected with Hafnar.haus. So, I want to start, Jelena, by asking you about I'm really fascinated by like the two elements that are kind of the main makeup of your working life. The musical side of things and the writing. And there's obviously a lot of overlap in some of those activities. But I wanted to ask you about like how you manage to strike a balance between the solitary nature of writing and the kind of collaborative aspects of music making and performing. Are these things like different kind of seasons in your life? Is there a time for kind of going inward and being alone and then going out and sharing and collaborating? Or is this something that you try and find balance in your day-to-day?
I think it's something that I'm always trying to find more balance in. I think it's an ongoing process for most creative people, and maybe a certain balance works for you for a certain length of time and then it stops working and you got to kind of rejig things.
Do you have a tendency to like lean into one more than the other? Are you forcing yourself to get out there, or are you like having to make yourself go home and close the door?
I think I have a tendency to always feel like I'm neglecting one of them and then like feel guilt about that. But it isn't possible to always be giving 100% in every single thing that you're doing. And I think that's something everyone can relate to who just, has a job and life outside of their work or whatever. So maybe it gets like a little bit more complicated when you're juggling more balls. Mm-hmm. But I think also that's just, I've sort of realized that is the kind of life that I enjoy more. And that's just who I am as a person.
So the imbalance is kind of the balance in a way?
Yeah, in a way. I think I struggle with the idea of imagining myself doing one thing every day and just like having the same kind of day every day, 5 days a week. So I think I get a lot out of, having one job that's creative in a certain way and then having another job that's creative in another way. Mm-hmm. And I think they, as you pointed out, they're very related. So I often, when I'm telling people what I do, I often say that I am a storyteller, as you mentioned, or that I tell stories with words and music. Yeah. And I think that there is a lot of overlap. Like in journalism, you're always, looking for a narrative in the things that you're writing about. And I think in my songwriting, I'm also always trying to tell a story about something, and the lyrics are really important to me in that respect as well.
No, that's something I've definitely noticed in your music. It's really narrative driven. And is it similar, I wonder, I mean, as someone who's done journalism in the past as well, I feel like there's this kind of magic moment a lot of the time where you have a topic that you know could be interesting, or someone to interview or whatever, and then suddenly you find that kind of hook, you find the angle of the story, and you can almost like feel it unfolding in front of you, like, oh, this is how I'm going to express this thing, or tell a story, or make other people understand. And do you experience that with your songwriting as well? Is there a moment where it starts to unfold, or is it something that you need to kind of, I don't know, make more of a concerted effort into following through?
I think most of the time it feels like more of a concerted effort, but not all of the time. Like sometimes songs just come to you and you feel like you're, the medium, and it's just sort of, you're just like receiving the message, and it just, happens. But I think that happens with writing as well, with, articles. I think the process can be really different, from like story to story or piece to piece or song to song. But I think the thing that the process always has is that moment before things start kind of like coming together, where you're just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you've got the topic, as you said, or you've got the, maybe what you want to write a song about, or you have some idea, a few chords or like a melody or a snippet of a lyric, and you just have no idea like how to make it into a thing. And so there's this, I think you just learn over time the more you create things. And I think everyone who creates things relates to that. You learn over time to sort of that part of the process where you have no idea what you're doing is a part of the process. 100%. And so crucial. And I think like, especially in, journalism, maybe people see it as less creative than other types of writing, perhaps. But I think it is still very creative. And I feel that way about translation as well. When you get into kind of what you're actually doing in translation, you're recreating something in a new context, in a new language, and that's also a creative process. And I think all of these processes have that stage where it's all just kind of a jumble, and that is actually, you don't feel like you're working, but you really are working.
In fact, I think that's probably the hardest and most important work of all, because it's so easy in that moment to think, I'm going to give up. I'm not going to go for this. But it's that's the real turning point, because if you can see that part through. I call it the dark night of the soul. And
it's a good name.
When I was working with interns, I was always, because I think it's really easy to, I don't know for you how it is, but for me that's the part where also all of this like anxiety and self-doubt and all of these negative emotions that we can also associate with creativity creep in, and they are undoubtedly negative emotions, but they're crucial to the creative process. And so if you kind of can't let them overwhelm you, you can't listen to only the devil on your shoulder, but they're also the part where you have to get so inventive to get around them. I think it's really integral to talking to creatives to talk about self-doubt and imposter syndrome and all of these things. I mean, how have you experienced that, and how do you handle it?
No, I'm always 100% confident in everything I do. Of course.
Great. Okay, fantastic. Well, okay,
next question.
Bye.
I think, absolutely. I think that's also a part of the process. Sometimes, you show up to the studio, or you show up to, you sit down to write something or whatever, and your work that day is just kind of getting over this emotional block or this fear that you have of making the thing or doing the thing. And I'm sure that there's some non-creative worker out there who's going to listen to me say this and be like, oh, these artists.
No, they're not.
That's not real work.
They're not tuned into this podcast.
Really, sometimes, maybe they're not tuned into this podcast at all. But sometimes that's the work, On some days that's the work of just, I felt that with my not my latest EP, but the one before that.
Yes.
As I was recording demos, that I definitely had days where it just seemed like such a scary, like, big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had days where I was like, okay, I'm going to do demo recordings today, and most of the day was me just kind of freaking out about it, and having to get through those feelings to like be able to do it.
This first EP, Shelters 1, Shelters I, Shelters
1.
Shelters
Yeah,
1.
It's like written out one. So
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So this was released in 2021.
Good question. 2020, I think, actually.
2020,
yeah,
okay.
The
A
pandemic
real COVID
kind of,
baby.
Or the panini, as I've heard some people call it.
The roadworks is how I prefer to.
Yeah, that kind of really affected our sense of time, I think.
Yeah.
So,
oh my God.
It's
totally.
definitely, I'm going to blame the panini for why there was such a long break between Shelters 1 and Shelters 2.
Well, I mean, so
But,
Shelters 2, which came out last October.
Yes.
So that's that's like a, this is normally like a 2-year album cycle.
Yeah,
it's just a
completely
little
normal.
A little bit.
I think, nowadays, when you are a creative person and you're producing, creative things, some sort of creative output, you feel, it's easy to feel a lot of pressure to just constantly be putting things out there, but you need the time in between, as you were saying.
Absolutely.
To kind of just, to have some input so that you can have output based on that input. And a friend of mine who's also a writer and graphic designer and musician, does a bunch of other creative things. I think he had a good way of putting it. When I was in one of those phases where I wasn't really like producing stuff, he said, "Oh, you're in R&D, research and development," which is like something we're used to corporate people kind of saying.
Well,
but,
exactly.
like, we have these processes too. We absolutely do, and we need those like time periods where we're just kind of taking things in that we're then going to process and make into, art.
Absolutely. I fully agree. And it's something that kind of came up a little bit when I was talking with Renee for last episode, which you should absolutely check out if you haven't already. But yeah, I think we were kind of drawing a couple of comparisons between regular jobs, there's air quotes around that, where it's quite, in his case, when we were talking together, Renee and I, we were talking about this idea that, if you were working in any other business, there would be managers, there would be administrators, there would be all of these people involved in making something happen. And yet there's this idea in the creative arts for a lot of people that there should just be the artist, there should just be the output, and it's like, someone painting on a canvas and then that's it, that's art, and that there shouldn't really be much structure around it. And I think it's really important to challenge that idea. And similarly with what you're saying with this kind of research and development, one of the things that I kind of worry about with this kind of rise in self-producing, self-releasing, as much as that is amazing and freeing for people and allows them to not be beholden to large record labels or have to have an art dealer or agent or whatever, then comes this pressure of, should I just not be releasing all the time? There's not maybe the same promotional cycle that there used to be. And it's really because there's always somebody putting something out. Because there's, again, it's even like people don't even release singles on a Friday anymore because you don't have to. That's like, you can do anything you want whenever. And that's a blessing and a curse. How do you experience this with social media and with kind of viewing other artists, musicians, writers around you and their work? Do you feel that as pressure? Maybe you don't. Maybe you're just like, yeah, good for them. And, I know imposter syndrome, and also, everything is great. But maybe you don't. I don't know. How do you take it?
Yeah, so many thoughts and questions. And
sorry, that was really inconcise.
But it's a conversation, and I think social media, it can be a blessing and a curse. And I think for me, what I love about making music is connecting with people.
Yeah.
And I think social media can be a great way to do that through your music, but also kind of around your music. And I think for a long time, I felt uncomfortable with the idea of kind of, for example, doing a selfie talking video and like telling people about, the song that I just released or that sort of thing. And then I kind of realized people actually want, people who like your music, they want to hear about your music and they want to hear you talk about your music. And, it's another way that you can connect with them. So it can be a really positive thing. But it can definitely be the source of pressure of kind of, I need to be always posting so people are paying attention to what I do. And I mean, as you pointed out, there's less kind of monopoly from, for example, large record companies, as there used to be, several decades ago. But now we have large streaming platforms or distributors that in a different way have a lot of control over how we release our music or who it reaches and how it reaches them. So I think it's just, like many industries, music is just a constantly changing world, and it's very much affected by technology and developments in technology. And, there's always going to be this struggle, this power struggle between, who controls how it's distributed. And I think I think that there can be negative and positive things about it. It's not just one or the other, I think. I think it's also really dangerous to get stuck in this frame of mind as a creative person where you just, see these big streaming platforms, for example, as just purely evil. No, completely. For some people, they've been definitely a boon and a better way of reaching people and sharing their music than the record labels of yore, would have been.
The record labels of yore,
yeah,
is a great phrase.
It's the title of your next book. And for other artists, it's more difficult to break through. Yeah. So it kind of just depends. We always have to kind of learn and adapt, and I think it is also really important to, criticize when criticism is warranted and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with, Daniel Ek investing in weapons. It's the owner of Spotify. But, so...
Didn't even hear about that one.
Yeah.
There's just the horrors continue to unfold.
Yeah, I went to that dark place. What did you call the writing?
The dark night of the soul.
The dark night of the soul.
Oh,
that was it. The dark night of the Spotify.
Oh no.
So I think it's good to know about these things and talk about these things. But I don't think anything is purely negative or positive.
Which makes it harder sometimes.
Which does make it harder.
Shades of grey.
Yeah. It'd be really easy if, we could just all take a stance on every issue that was very clear. But.
It would, that would be tiring, but important. There's a lot. I'm very interested in lots of things that you have just raised, and I want to take it down one way, but come back to some of those things. Mm-hmm. When we're talking about presenting on social media or through kind of new media forms, another thing that you've kind of notably engaged in is with your visual identity and creating really fun and beautiful music videos, some of which have been award winners, nominated for
the music video for Rome, which is on my latest EP Shelters 2, that was nominated for best music video at the Icelandic Music Awards last year. So.
And it's really gorgeous. I recommend checking it out. And you actually can this weekend. It will be, we're going to talk a little about this more at the end, but it will be screened in Hafnar.haus, and you can come and see us, well, some of us here, and check it out as part of hafnar.community. So look out for that, or look it up on YouTube.
I just want to name drop the director before we move on, who is Sigurlaug Gísladóttir, or Mr. Silla, also an amazing artist who did an incredible job on this video. And we're going to be filming another video this weekend here in Hafnar.haus. So
amazing!
Very excited about that.
Keep your eyes peeled for Jelena if you come and see her video for hafnar.community as well. But I want to talk about your most recent music video, which was for inside weather.
Mm-hmm. Also on Shelters too.
Also on Shelters too. And that one was directed by Martina Daniel, who, when I was checking with Jelena about this earlier, and Jelena was like, "Oh yeah, she's here sometimes." And I was like, "Great."
I was just sort of like, "Yeah, she's here in Hafnar.haus a lot." As in, like, maybe you know her, Josie, or you've met her or something.
I was like,
I think it just came out as like, she's here.
Let's first, though, we're going to try technical leaps and bounds. We're going to try and have a look at the video.
Okay.
Hafnar, we're ready to go.
Looked up how long it takes you to walk here. I've been feeling strange these days, entertaining notions and emotion in waves. Can't put my finger on it. Can't put my finger on it.
Right, sorry, I forgot that I was supposed to be watching the video.
But it was Jelena's idea.
It's my idea, and then I dropped the ball.
Yeah, what a beautiful video.
Thank you.
Tell me about the process of coming up with the ideas for the music videos, because I'm really interested in this. You know, you've obviously got quite a lot of story involved in the actual music itself. How do you then translate that into like a visual idea for your audiences?
Well, I think it's really the director that kind of takes the lead, and I think it's so fun. I really love making music videos, and you know, I'm not a videographer, and I don't have any background in that, so it's just really fun to work with somebody who is a visual person and like sees things visually and can sort of create their own version of the story. It always feels like music videos kind of, they add a different layer to the story that the song is saying, and I think it's super interesting when they're not telling the exact same story that the song is. You know, they have their own narrative, and those two narratives are kind of like related maybe, but they're not exactly the same, and they give each other depth, and it's just so much fun to film music videos. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, to just have someone be like, try this, let's do that, let's try that. But yeah, with this particular video, and I've made another one with Martina as well earlier for my song Lines, which is also, they're both on YouTube, so you can check out her awesome work. We sort of sat down and we were brainstorming, and the song, I kind of told her what the song is about for me. And it's a song that I wrote during my first winter living in Iceland. It was super gray and really rainy that winter in particular, and obviously very dark.
Martina is watching, by the way, if you want to ask her a question.
I was
okay.
Yeah,
Martina is watching apparently. Right.
So
our producer is just
you want to ask more questions.
Yeah, or she can ask a question.
Yeah, she can do that too. Yeah. So we kind of started out by sitting down, and I was telling her, you know, I wrote this song during my first winter in Iceland, and it was kind of a tough time, you know, adjusting to a new place. It was very dark, and I kind of felt like the weather outside was being reflected in how I felt on the inside. And we basically decided to kind of work with that concept in the video. So we thought, like, wouldn't it be fun to try to kind of bring the weather indoors and just have this character who's like kind of stuck just in her home or like on the couch, but then there's all sorts of weather going on. So I think you just saw the beginning of the clip where there was like it was raining on me while I was reading a book, and you know, there's fog in the bathroom while I'm brushing my teeth, but there's like a snow scene, and we got a wind scene where there's like papers blowing around and stuff. So it was really fun to figure out how to do all those things indoors. So we had like fake snow and CGI snow, and we had like this elaborate piping system that was on top of me. That was like a plastic pipe that made it look like it was raining on me. And that scene appears first, but of course we had to film that last because we filmed the whole thing in a single day. So if we had filmed that first, then I would have been soaked for the rest of the video. So I don't know. That's just kind of the fun stuff of like doing a video, is like also all the planning of kind of like, okay, well, we got to do this scene first, and then we got to do this one. And yeah, it was super. It's fun.
It's another layer of creativity in your work, which I think audiences really appreciate. I really appreciate. I think it's really fun. I think you're doing some of the more interesting music videos that are coming out of Icelandic
kudos
music.
To Martina, because like, both of the videos I've done with her, I really love, and I feel like they hold up over time as well. Yes. I'm always just as like happy with them and interested in watching them, and yeah.
Great.
Also Silla.
We have a game.
Okay.
Ta-da! This is a box. I'm just going to lean over here, away from the mic, which is everyone's going to really appreciate. This box has lovely cards in it with questions that I don't know what they are. Could be anything. I would like you to pick a card and then give it to me, and I'm going to read it to you. And maybe we'll find out a little bit more about Jelena. Okay.
I'm nervous.
Do you want to put the lid back on the box?
Sure.
Very beautiful props. Very Thank you,
it's
Lenny.
A really beautiful little question mark.
Ooh. Okay. Are you ready?
Make the box so hard to put back together. That was the most challenging part of the interview.
Well, it's going to get worse. Okay. No.
Oh, Lord.
Something I wish I had been told as a child. You can be as introspective or as surface level with that as you wish.
There's so many things, I think.
Do you want me to make a list for your parents? Okay.
Like, how long should this be? No, I feel like I was very lucky with my parents. I mean, there's always things that we always feel like, oh, if I had kids, then I'll do this thing differently, you know. But I think in general,
then you have kids and you're like, oh,
and
yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like one thing I was sort of thinking about recently that kind of relates to this was, I think it's really hard to be a teenager. Like, I just think it's really hard to be a teenager. And I think like adults have a tendency of kind of minimizing children's and teenagers' problems because from their perspective, you know,
it's all going to work out.
Their lived experience.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, I have bigger problems now than, you know, my teenage kid has. But your teenage kid doesn't have that lived experience and the perspective of going through those things. And when you're a teenager, I mean, like, your feelings are your whole life. Like, you feel an emotion, and that's just like your entire existence, and it's hard. Yeah. And I just think like we could all as adults do a bit better in just acknowledging that, like with young people, of just like, what you're going through is hard, rather than like kind of minimizing. You know, I wouldn't go back to my teenage years. Like, I had a pretty good like childhood and like high school experience and all of that, but I still like would not choose to go back there.
Not at all.
Know? So I think it's just like acknowledging that like it's hard to be a kid sometimes. It's hard to be a teenager.
I completely agree. I actually was having an interesting conversation with another creative member of the house yesterday about this, and I want to see what your take on this is. But basically, I was saying that there's this theory of adolescence. There's quite a, you know, because like you were saying about teenagers, their feelings are their whole life and your hormones are raging, and so there's all of these different theories as to why teenagers behave the way that they do, some of which are quite like physiological. But there's this one theory that posits that teenagers transition between states far more often than anyone else does in their normal life. So if you're an adult and you have a pretty standard life, then generally you get up, you have your family life, you go to the office, you have your workmates, maybe you do something in the evening, otherwise you come home. You know, your in these very familiar environments every day, and you don't transition between many of them in a day. Whereas if you're a teenager and you're in a typical high school, you are transitioning constantly through friend groups, through classes, different teachers. There's the environment that might be around at lunchtime. There's the environment, there's evening activities. You are learning to create a quite strong persona as an individual, whilst at home you have this your identity is much more as a child, as part of the family. And this theory of adolescence basically says that that's why teenagers be crazy, is because they're constantly changing states. And I was thinking recently, and having this conversation yesterday with Saivar, that isn't that like us? If you live a creative life, and if you are if you
Creatives be crazy.
Creatives do be I mean absolutely, on a kind of like fun surface level, but also there are, I think none of us are immune to having big emotions like teenagers, and also, we have to talk about mental health and mental well-being. Just wanted to throw that right back at you and see what your take on that is as an idea. I mean, how do you go about preserving your mental well-being whilst living this kind of all over the place creative life?
I go to therapy. Yeah. I'm currently not going to therapy, but I have gone to therapy, and I recommend therapy. And I wish it were, I wish we talked about therapy like we talk about going to the dentist.
Absolutely.
Like I wish
it's
it was
maintenance.
like normalized. Yeah, it's maintenance. And I wish that everybody had the privilege and like the ability. I mean, what I mean is like now, because it's so expensive to go to therapy in most places, it's not something that many people can afford. Or
have entitlement through or access through basic healthcare.
It's just not accessible to everybody. It's not accessible to a lot of people. But yeah, I wish that it were integrated into our society in a way that we did just see it as maintenance, and it would be so helpful for like everyone to be able to kind of show up to a therapist once every 6 months, just to kind of be like, so
I'm here for my check-in.
What's going on in your life? Like, what are the challenges? Like, and so I think like, that's a huge thing. But I don't think it's the only tool. I mean, there's so many tools. Just having a good community around you, like we have in Hafnar.haus, like, I feel like just being part of this community has done so much for my mental health as a creative, just like being surrounded by people who have similar challenges in their life and similar, successes as well, and similar things that drive them.
Being able to share the issues that you're having, and there's almost always somebody nearby who can say, I've had a similar experience, and here's some tools that I used. And I think that's so valuable.
Absolutely. And, like physical activity is really good. Sometimes you need to just go outside and go for a walk or
join the Hafnar.haus gym.
And, join the Hafnar.haus gym. That's right. Yeah. And I think like I try to, one of my struggles in recent years has just been like to try to not be so hard on myself, and try to not, not expect as much of myself, or, not expect perfection of myself.
But you are
perfect.
Just
like have Josie. Just try to not expect perfection, and try to just do things more and think less. And I think that's something that I really enjoy about kind of the creative community and the music community here in Iceland, is that people don't overthink things; they just do things.
It just happens.
Yeah, I think I grew up more in an environment with more hierarchy, where you have an idea, but then you kind of ask yourself, wait, am I allowed to do that? Am I qualified enough? Am I educated enough to do that? Am I able of, you right away kind of stop yourself with all of these kind of questions and potential problems. And I just find that here in Iceland, people have all kinds of ideas, and then they just do them. They just act on them. And I've been trying to learn from that. And I think I have slowly been learning from that. I think I'm like haven't gone as far as I would like in that direction, but I think that's a lot of a good way of trying to find balance as a creative person is just do the thing. Try not to think too much about the thing or the outcome of the thing, because you can't, ultimately that's the part that you can't really control. You release music and you have some ideas or goals about, I want this many people to hear it, or I want it to, reach whatever thing or do whatever for my career, but and ultimately you can sort of like set yourself up as well as possible for those things and those achievements, but there's always going to be that element that you just can't control. So you have to find, it's so cliche, but you have to find satisfaction in the process and just find satisfaction in parts of the creative journey that you can control and that you can directly access, because there's so much of it that you can't control. And if you put your own personal value there, then it's just really difficult.
Yes, I completely agree. That's really wonderful advice. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, I hope I can follow it one day.
We don't have a lot of time left. I know that we have some questions from the floor, from the Facebook stream.
Yeah.
Hafnar.
This is my voice is being heard, I believe. Speaking of perfection, there is a big disappointment on the lack of color coordination with the host, and maybe you want to explain how this
we
is
can solve this right now.
Okay.
We're going to solve this right now. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
We've got to make the people happy.
Okay.
Is that better?
Are you happy now?
Is better?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. Oh, and now I don't have a mic anymore.
It was impromptu. I was called in last minute. We weren't prepared.
We will have better color coordination
But
next time.
we've done what we can for the people.
Yes.
There were also questions that you are actually answering about how you keep all these balls in the air, and if you ever get overwhelmed with it, which you answered. But there is a very specific question from a fan asking when this beautiful song called Rain is going out. Apparently fans are going, I quote, loco because to listen to it.
Oh no, the fans.
That is a good question. I haven't recorded it yet, but maybe I should. Yeah. I was the brief story about that song and Hafnar.haus, how it relates to Hafnar.haus is that it was a song that I had kind of worked on ages ago, and then I had a little songwriting session with Jose Luis, who's also a member of Hafnar.haus, and I was sort of like, I have this song. I don't know if it's done yet. Maybe I can play it for you, and you can just tell me what you think. And I played it for him, and he was like, it's done, yeah. So
nice.
Sometimes you need an outside ear to just kind of to tell you things like that and just encourage you. And since then I've played it live, I think twice. So although there's no like recording date that's concrete, I think Hafnar.haus is definitely helping me get closer to that. So I'll just say stay tuned.
Yeah,
So
poor local
Stay
fans.
tuned.
There's no concrete recording date, and this goes back to the question that was posed, concrete.
Concrete?
What's concrete in your work?
What's concrete?
Yeah, what's
in
that
my work?
about?
That's a great question. Does that
I have a song
wrote
called
that-
Concrete. That's why I laughed. I thought you were. Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
I want
Mentioning
whoever wrote
yeah.
that question
Yeah, it's
can
about the
take my
song
job.
Concrete.
It's
I
about
think,
the song
yeah.
Concrete. Okay. So I have a song Concrete, which is like a bit of a tongue-in-cheek song about, being an artist and having a not regular job, and
Yeah.
maybe also how artists perceive regular jobs, because I think a lot of us don't really know what regular jobs are. We have this idea of what we think it means
Yeah.
or what we think it's like to, work 9 to 5 in a certain type of job, but we don't have often very much experience of that actually. But what is, so that the song is a little bit about that, and it's a little bit just kind of a joke about how, concrete jobs are more reliable and people tend to undervalue maybe the arts, but what's concrete in my work? I think just this element of storytelling, like just trying to communicate something and trying to connect with people, or at least I hope that that's always concrete in
Absolutely.
my work, is just and that's what I enjoy the most about my work, whether it's as a journalist, like I work for the magazine Iceland Review, and I get to meet all kinds of people doing super cool things and just like interview them and talk to them about it, and then tell other people about it through my writing. And I'm so privileged to be able to connect people in that way and just like learn people's stories. And as a musician, like there's nothing I love more about that discipline than actually connecting with people, whether it's like live through a concert or by releasing something that people relate to and connect with. And helps create a space for them to feel certain emotions or to discuss certain things that maybe they don't have a way of kind of expressing themselves, or that they don't have a space for in their day-to-day life.
Or a platform.
Yeah.
I think that it's very apparent in your work, this idea of narrative, of connection, of community. And it's such a joy to talk to you about your thoughts on creativity and leading a creative life. I have a full sheet of questions here, of which I've asked you, I think, 2, and we just went from there. So I think what this shows is that we definitely have to have Jelena back on the podcast again, so we can get through more of this, of these questions and chat with her more. So please leave a comment if you have more questions for Jelena, if you'd like to see her back. Please make sure to check out her music videos and her albums, EP, Shelters 1, and full album Shelters 2.
Also EP.
Also an EP. Oh, sorry. And you can see Jelena playing live as part of the concert series at Mengi that we're running, Hafnar House, that Jose Luis, who you talked about, is in charge of curating, and that's later in February.
That's February 16th.
It's February 16th.
But there are other concerts in that series this weekend.
Yes.
And
So let's quickly go over because we are at time, but I want to quickly go over some of the stuff that is happening connected with Hafnar House this weekend. So if you're watching us on video, you will be able to see this beautiful, ta-da! Our zine is out, our first issue. It's gorgeous.
We haven't even opened it. I'm so excited to open it.
It's got
beautiful.
stickers.
It's the Hafnar House colours.
There was a whole team of people here last night folding and also drinking wine, and I think one of them facilitated the other. I'm not sure which way. But they've done a fantastic job. So the official launch of the zine is tonight, Thursday, 1st of February, and it is happening simultaneously to our Hafnar House store opening. It's happening at the same time and the same place, which is 5:30 in Klapperstígur 29, Tuttugunniu.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm learning. So please come along, check out some products from amazing people in Hafnar House. There's a whole range of things. I can't even think off the top of my head. Prints, and I think there's going to be food, and
I would just show up and see, because
be
I think
surprised.
whatever there is there, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. There'll be a zine. We're a zine.
Yes.
We're a store. We're a podcast. We're a cult.
We
We're
are
a community.
A cult. We all wear the same clothes every day.
We've got the color coordination.
Actually,
have you watched Wild Wild Country?
No.
It's a great documentary
about
a cult. And we're kind of approaching their color palette, actually. So
what we do
talk about Hafnar House
in the
uniforms.
house. Yeah, well, in the house we actually text each other, all like 300 and whatever members every morning. We all text and say, okay, orange, and then we all come in orange. And I just didn't get the memo today, but that's fine. I'll be better, and the cult will punish me. After there's a little bit of like svepgalsi going on for this issue of the podcast. It won't be here forever, I promise. But after you've been to the store opening at 5:30 in Klapperstígur, please then come to Hafnar House, where you will be able to see Owen and Thorstein are doing an event
as part of the Winter Lights Festival.
Vetrarhátíð.
Vetrarhátíð. They've got a super cool. They've got sort of a 2-in-1 project. So they're projecting video art onto the building next door, the Tollhúsið, the customs building, and then they've got like a series of videos by people that are members of Hafnar House that are going to be screened throughout the weekend, really, inside Hafnar House in our sort of common area,
which is called the Wasabi Room.
The Wasabi
because
Room,
we like to do everything based on colours.
Yes.
And that's from 6:30 till 10:30 from the 1st to the 3rd of February. And if you come inside, you can have some hot chocolate and some waffles as well. Except I have forgotten the waffle machine. Sorry, Owen, if you're watching. I will go get it. And then, yes, our Mengi concert series. We have 2 concerts this weekend. Tomorrow night, February 2nd, we have Ronja and Knackered. And then on Saturday, we have Oyama and Possumist, who is our very own Lenny in the corner. We're waving at her. She looks happy. Doors are at 8. Concert starts at 8:30. Please come and support our wonderful musicians. We're over time. We've had a lovely chat. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Josie.
I like talking to you.
I like talking to you too.
And
your lipstick looks great.
Thanks. I made her say that. Thank you all for joining us at home, and we will see you for the next episode. Goodbye. She disappeared. I wanted to reference her, but
She was embarrassed.
thanks for
She
the
was just
loan.
like,
Thanks for making me part of the
Yeah.
cult. There was so much I wanted to ask you that we didn't even touch on, but I think
we can-
genuinely you need to come back and